Hey guys, this is Margie again. We got part 2 of the tutorial on animating on wolf. Now I apologize for the weird setup. It's going to be a little bit tilted, but this is the best I could do. So we're going to start with a tween here, and I'm focusing on a drawing that's kind of a little bit already finished. We've already got a pretty, here, let me see, there we go. I've already got a pretty close approximation of what this is going to look like, and we're working on basically Shadow's head turn here. So this is him starting to turn his head, and then he eventually goes into this position. So I'm working out the tween here, and one of the things that bothered me was that Shadow wasn't really staying on model. And so I'm going to go in here and try to make this drawing just a little bit more on model. As you can see, I'm relying mainly on flipping. Now I apologize for the quality of the webcam. You're probably not going to be able to see a whole lot of the tiny detail work, but hopefully you can get an idea of how I work, and that'll help you out. Now the first thing I notice is that I have Shadow's mouth curving down here like this, whereas in the first drawing, which I'm trying to follow faithfully, his mouth goes out further. He's grimacing, so his mouth kind of goes out towards the edges. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move his mouth over. So I'm going to erase this previous line, and I'm going to flip. I do a lot of flipping, and his head's turning, so his mouth is going to move further up his face a little bit. So I'm going to put a little marker there to show where I want to go and flip it to see if it's working and coming across. It's a little too low, so I'm going to move it up just a hair. And notice I haven't wasted all this time trying to like draw his mouth on model, or his, or to draw the details of the curvature of his mouth yet. All I'm doing right now is flipping to see where I want this to go. Okay, that looks about right now when I flip it. So now I'm going to worry about how his mouth would curve as it actually comes around that bend. So I'm going to kind of rough it in a little. He's got a bit of a point, so I'm giving it a little shape here. That'll give him dimension as he turns. And I see now that I've gone a little too far. It kind of looks like he's smiling, so I'm going to bring this down just a hair. You want to be very subtle when you make your changes at this stage, because a little bit goes a long way. When you're roughing in your animation at the beginning, it's fun and it's easy and it's not a big deal to go and just rough it all in and make it look just as ridiculously dirty as possible. But at this stage, everything's clean, and the slightest change in a line will make all the difference once it starts animating. So I'm going to flip. I'm also flipping between my first drawing and my last drawing. And I'm flipping this one, even though this one's on top, I'm flipping it in such an order that I can kind of see the movement without having to stop and capture it. So this saves me a lot of time. I learned this from a Disney animator that taught at my school, so this is a legitimate technique, but also it just works. So give it a try sometime. It's something that's a little tricky to learn. It doesn't come terribly naturally, but once you master it, it's really helpful, and it helps everything to stay organic, as opposed to just relying on a lightbox, which can start to look pretty static and mathematical after a while because you're being so precise. This allows you to see the organism moving and to get an idea of that. So I've kind of fixed up his mouth a little. I'm going to go in and give him that little point to show that his muzzle, is a certain shape. It's not just a flat line across his face. Now the other thing that's bothering me in this is his nose. It seems to kind of dip down before it comes back up. So I'm going to just erase his nose, and I'm going to go to my original 2 drawings and kind of flip them back and forth. That'll give me an idea of, it'll help my brain to visualize where the nose is moving. So it's kind of going a little bit more like this. So I'm going to just rough that in. I'm not adding details again yet because it needs to stay very rough, because I'm just capturing the movement. I'm not worried yet about, where the shiny is going to go and how does it bend over here and all this. I'm just capturing the movement and trying to see exactly what part of the paper I need to draw this on. And right now it's looking like a clown nose, but that's all right. So I'm flipping over and flipping over. It doesn't look quite right. I think what it is I've made it too fat now, so I'm going to move this up a little bit like this and go into it like that. There we go. It's looking a lot better. I've kind of done with the nose, but I'm still not going to go in and add details because I want to change the markings on his face. And one of the reasons I don't always go in and finish up the part that I just fixed, such as the nose, is that the markings are going to relate to his nose. And so if I need to go back and change his nose because of some changes that I make on the markings, then it's going to be a waste if I've sat there and I've detailed it in. So I'm going to go in and just play around with this. I'm still flipping. I'm constantly flipping and looking to see what the original shape was and where it's going. and it's going around his face, so his markings are going to move in a very specific, difficult way. So anyway, that's just a little basic tutorial. I'm not going to go into the entire process because we'd be here for hours and hours and hours, but this is what I do when we get to kind of the cleanup stage of the game, and I want to keep everything as tight as possible so that my inkers don't have to animate, because they're going to have enough of a chore with having to animate the line width, the line quality, and make sure that everything looks really nice and sharp, and you don't want to give them also the task of doing your animation that you were supposed to do. So it really helps to keep everything tight and to focus on making sure every little detail is right and flipping constantly to make sure that the masses move and that everything's staying on model. So that's it. I hope this helps you guys out a lot.